Welcome Year 9 to your summer project. So this summer we are inviting you to explore just how far life has changed this year and why it has changed. And we're doing that around the concept that 2020 has been a year of seismic change for the world. The term seismic means enormous or great, and we normally use that term in relation to earthquakes, so that idea of earth-shattering change. Now, we have given you 4 titles that we would like you to base your research on. Only one of these titles that you need to focus with. And the questions are as follows. To what extent can the purposeful use of language on social media promote the views or opinions of a person? To what extent has 2020 been a year of seismic change? Assess the extent to which the COVID-19 pandemic will have a long-term impact on the global environment. And this particular PowerPoint is going to focus on how far in 2020 does Parliament represent British society? Now you will need to answer one of these pieces of research. So have a look through this PowerPoint, then have a look through the other PowerPoints before you come to your decision. Make sure that this is the one for you. So let's break this question down together. How far in 2020 does Parliament represent British society? Now, Parliament are a group of people who are elected through voting in the UK. So the public of the UK generally come together every 4 years to vote for their local members of Parliament. Those members of Parliament then go to Parliament, and the party with the majority, the most, leads the Parliament. At the minute, we have a Conservative Parliament. This group's job is to make decisions and laws for the whole country to follow. To represent someone means that you speak or act for them. So Parliament represents the people they have been voted in by. The work they do is based on supporting the people's views. So that brings us to the idea of British society. British society refers to a large group of people who live together in Britain in an organised way, make decisions about how to do things, and share work that needs doing. So they are the general public of Britain. In order to fully answer this question and look at how far Parliament does represent Britain and the people within it, we need to collect some information. So, information collection is the most important part of research. It's when you get all of your ideas together through looking at different sources of information. Now, you can gather this information through mind maps by making lists on bullet points, through subheadings to separate your research out so that when you come to present, it's very clear what you want to put across. I've given you some questions here to break that down, just to make that early research a bit more straightforward. So you can start by looking at the basics. How does Parliament work? So what are their jobs and how do they get laws through? What does Parliament do for Britain? What doesn't Parliament do for Britain? So what limits are there on Parliament's power and why? What has Parliament done that was popular with the British people in 2020? So what laws and rules has it passed that British people have liked? What has Parliament done that was unpopular in 2020? And have Parliament ever represented Britain fully? So with those key questions there, you're going to get a lot of information. But you can go beyond these. These are starting points. If you think the information is relevant in looking at how Parliament represents British society, definitely include that too. A how far question allows you to look at both pros and cons of Parliament's representation. So you can look at both sides of the argument here, that it does represent society and that it doesn't represent society. So the sources of information you can look into are endless, and they are going to give you those different opinions. Start with Google. Google is a fantastic way to get the very basics of your research that you need. Google will come up with millions of results for all of the questions previous, but through these there will be a couple of pages there that you're not 100% sure whether they are accurate or not. If you're unsure, make sure that you do further research into that, just to ensure that the research you're pulling from it is going to be useful to you. Secondly, your local library not only has books that are old, it has very up-to-date resources that you can use. If you can't find something in a library, then the librarian or the researchers that work there are definitely going to help you out in order to find what you need. So definitely take advantage of those. Next, we have magazines. Now, magazines have articles in them by journalists, and journalists do take opinions on things. So throughout magazines, you will find lots of different views and opinions on things that have happened. So they are brilliant sources in order to get your different viewpoints. The radios often do broadcasts where they invite different people to speak on certain issues. So there you are going to get some different viewpoints as well as some basic information. Newspapers are endless in their use to researchers because not only do they provide the opinions we've already discussed here, but they also have breakdowns of Parliament and the issues that have gone through Parliament, so looking through those are going to bring up some really key ideas for you too. And finally, word of mouth. So when we're talking about Parliament representing British society, it's important to take British society's view into account. And British society is the people you live with and around. So by speaking to them, you're going to get their views on whether they feel represented, which is just as important as what the newspapers say. So make sure you take full advantage of the opinions around you. Now we get to the exciting bit, ways in which you could present your research. And this really is your research, your piece of work. So it does fall to you to decide how you want to present that to school. You could do it through an information board, a display board with lots of key information on it, lots of the different pieces of views and opinions you have picked up. You could do it through an infographic, which you'll see just in the middle of the page here. An infographic combines both images and research together. It's very eye-catching, it's very modern and up-to-date, and you will have seen them placed all over school as well. You could do it as a news report. So news reports can be either biased, so have one viewpoint, or they can be multi-viewed, so that would be something to explore. You could do it as a school report, as a voice report, just like this, in which you conduct your research and you present that. You could even do it as a piece of artwork or a model if you feel like that would be sufficient enough to get the points across that you need making. There are endless ways in which you could present your research. All you need to do is ensure that the key points are there, that the content is strong, and that your overall arching opinion on the question is very clear. The rest is up to you. How will your project be marked? Now, you'll have put a lot of effort into this project. You should be looking at between 8 and 10 hours to give us a fully formed project. And you can pick up marks for many different criteria because we know how much time and work you'll put into this. So, effort is the first one. The more effort you put in, the more points you will receive. That one's pretty clear cut. Content is the second criteria, and that links to the depth you've gone into. So how much information you've gathered and how much you've separated that out and made it clear and looked at all the different sides of the coin, all the different opinions on the question. And finally, creativity. So we were talking about the ways in which you can present your research, and this is where you can really shine. So maybe you've created this fantastic model that highlights all the important opinions. You're going to pick up marks for your creativity around that too. On the next slide, you'll find the prizes that are up for grabs after submission. Now, every student who enters will get 25 credits. So think about that and the impact that can have. It's going to get you towards that first certificate. And at the end of this, you're going to have something very valuable moving forward. You're going to have a piece of constructed research that shows your ability to everybody who sees it. So with that said, I hope you all enjoy this taking part in the summer project and that it fills a bit of that time. If you have any questions, forward on to your school. Hope you have a lovely summer and work very hard.